redefine the digital workplace. This episode is titled Back to the Workplace. In this session, we will discuss strategies to ensure uninterrupted output and undeterred productivity as organizations start inching towards normalcy. We look at the impact digitization can have on efforts geared towards maintaining business continuity with insights from our panel of esteemed experts. I'm very happy to introduce the thought leaders who have joined us today. We have Mr. Manish Purwar, Senior Director, Service Commercial Platforms at GE Healthcare, Mr. Abhina Suresh Khare, Chief Digital Officer at Bajaj Capital Limited, Mr. Rajashri Purkayastha, Head Pre-Sales, MECAA and India at Tata Communications. We also have Mr. Janeshwar Gaikwad, who is expected to join our panel in a bit. He's the Executive Vice President, Corporate Technology Management, Edelweiss Financial Services Limited. A very warm welcome to each one of you. Thank you for joining us today. We will begin with a keynote presentation by Mr. Purkayastha and then proceed to our panel discussion. Over to you, Mr. Purkayastha.
Thank you, Rudra. I'm hoping you can hear me well, and I'm going to, you have to allow me to share my screen so that I can present the short PPT.
Yes, you can share.
Okay, cool. I have that now. I just shared the presentation. I'm hoping you can see it.
Yep. We can see it. Yeah, it's full screen.
Thank you. Thanks, Rudra. And it's an honor and pleasure for me to be speaking to all of you today on this very exciting topic, which is back to workplace, which I'm sure a lot of you are looking forward to. And specifically, when we think about the workplace of tomorrow, it's not going to be the same as yesterday. There are nuances which has come in. People are not going to work in the same manner as they have worked in the past. So what's going to happen in the future is what we're going to see today. I've put down a few things which came about from the learnings in the last few months. And I'm sure I'm going to learn a few things from the esteemed panel that we have today, and also from the questions that you ask. So looking forward to the session in a very, very enthusiastic manner. Let me start by putting this slide in front of you. When you think about workplace, what pops in your mind? For me, I think about swanky buildings, I think about cubicles, cafeterias, meeting rooms, etc. However, when you think about an integrated value chain, and in that integrated value chain, this isn't the only workspace. The workspace of today and also for tomorrow is much more expansive, where we need to think about the field workers. We need to think about the retail shops, the mom and pop shops. We need to think about logistics, and therefore the truck becomes a workplace. We need to think about sales who are there on the field. Now, if we can take an example of farm to fork ecosystem and what happens there, you'd see that starting from the farmer who is working in a field, that's his workplace, to the logistics, to the customer, which is the end one. In the entire value chain, each of them is extremely important. And from that perspective, if you only think about one of them or few of them, for example, your logistics, your offices, and not the farmer, the productivity fall in the farmer or the truck driver can actually, weaken the entire value chain. So if the ecosystem fails, the business also will fail, right? And therefore, for the IT leaders, it's extremely important that today we think bigger, we think collaboration across the value chain, and we think about the ecosystem. Now let's take an example from an India context. If you think about India, we have 1.3 billion people, out of which around 500 million people are connected on internet today. 800 million people are not. Within this 500 million, there are around 300 million who are digitally literate. And that's where, a lot of digital things are happening. So when an organization says that I'm going to build a new app, that's for the 300. Unfortunately, this space is becoming extremely crowded, and we kind of do not have space anymore. For the 200 and the 800, which is the next billion, we are not really thinking about anything. So for example, your maid comes at home, or if you're a worker at home, they may have a smartphone but they don't know how to use it. So is there a solution for that? Can there be a population level or a population scale architecture that you can make? That's what is important, creating a workspace for population scale. Now here is where the interesting facts come in, right? You can't make it seamless. You'll have to think about different tiers. So the first tier can be the rich collaboration that you have within the enterprise where your employees can collaborate effectively. Then you make something which is for the near ecosystem where your partners come in, and then think about the far ecosystem, which may be population scale. Now, there will be a stark difference between what you give for the enterprise and for the far ecosystem, because the needs will be different, the level of collaboration required, and the workspace definition will be different, and therefore the entire system will also be different. And the interesting thing is, once you start thinking like this, the implementation will also be easier. So when you think about productive workplace for tomorrow, there are a few important points which needs to be considered. The first one is, how do you make it safe and secure? How do you make the productivity easier for your employees, and employees when I mean across the value chain? And finally, how do you make collaboration and communication simple and ubiquitous? And that's where you need to think about multiple things. So for example, from a safety perspective, are you thinking about social distancing? Are you thinking about location trackers? Using the data from there, are you doing something from a productivity perspective in terms of where are the milling points? How do you eliminate friction? How can you improve efficiency? And from a collaboration standpoint, how can you do continual improvement in the communication, in how various actors in your entire value chain collaborate together is what will come in. Now, when you think about, therefore, the digital ecosystem, and there is a drive towards digital first, cloud first, internet first, and security across architecture. But that does not mean that when you think about digital first, that you'll have some tools. When you think about cloud, you'll put everything on a hyperscaler. Or internet first doesn't mean that everything will be on internet, and security doesn't mean that you'll have a firewall. That's where you need to have a larger perspective for digital first, cloud first, internet first, and security across. So for example, if I can take security as an example, where you think about Sri Krishna Commission, and therefore PDP coming in, the Personal Data Protection Law. What are you doing about it? Specifically, if you have multiple people's data with you, do you have a privacy operations center which is integrated in your architecture today? Is your architecture flexible enough and agile enough to take internet as you grow? Do you have an architecture which can have multiple characters for the same actor? So, for example, me as a persona may have multiple, sub personas per se. Me at home, me at office, me in a hotel, and so on and so forth. So, how do you cater to all those kind of things is what will be needed. So that's where transformation in thinking is required. That's where we come in as Tata Communications. We will help you define the entire enterprise digital architecture by thinking about what do you need as a business, designing for that end result, which will have both present and future in mind, deploy it and manage it to ensure that you can take your digital investments to population scale. Thank you for your time, and back to you, Rudra.
Thanks, Rajesh. That was extremely interesting. Clearly the past 9 months have shown us that the way we work is changing forever. A lot of firms have discovered value in that as well. Figured out that things that they were probably planning to do in the next 3 or 4 years have been crunched in a shorter period, and they've discovered actually it's a better way to work. cost aside, in terms of efficiency as well. So I think we have a good discussion in store for us, given that context. A quick note to our attendees as well. We have a Q&A button at the bottom. If you have any questions, please do, and we would encourage you to share your questions at the bottom, and we will answer them towards the end. Before we start with our panel discussion, and also inviting all our panelists, Mr. Purwar and Mr. Khare, to switch on their cameras and their mics, I have a very quick poll that we'll share with our audience, and our panelists can also participate. And we'll see the results of that. Just launching the poll right now. We'll keep it live for about 30-40 seconds, allowing everybody to vote, and then we can quickly look at the results. Forty seconds. Few more people left to vote, please. Okay. Just sharing the results. So we asked the first question. There were two questions. We asked which of the statements do you agree with? Workplace is our office shop floor, and it has all the digital infrastructure required. Workplace is our office shop floor, and now workstation at home, and we are fully digitally enabled. Workplace is my office shop floor, and now workstation at home, and my workplace is not fully digital. And the last part is, of course, the complete ecosystem, including my vendors, factory suppliers, and we need a complete ecosystem transformation. 39% said the last. So clearly, many companies are still in that journey. The second question was, what is your top concern in relation to creating a productive workplace for your organization? I think among all of the options, 72% said all of the above, means collaboration solutions, health and safety, and a robust network. Great. So moving on to our panel discussion. And my first question is really for all our speakers. So the last few months have seen organizations slowly restarting operations in the workplace. What have been your key priorities in this regard? Mr. Purwar, you're from the health space. You could maybe start off talking about.
Sure. Thanks, Rudra. So just quick introduction. Manish Purwar, being in the industry since 20 years. Today, whatever I speak will be my own views, so not be considered as my organization views. Okay. So as the organization is slowly starting to get back to normalcy, right? The employee safety has been the key priority for almost all organizations. Whoever I spoke to in the industry, their primary focus has been the employee safety and how to make the employee comfortable to be at the workplace whenever they get back to the office. The question has been, do the employee really feel comfortable to be in the office if they have to be in the office? The employer is also started relooking the workplace, right? If the work can be done remotely, they are thinking about that. Do they really need employees to be back in the office for that work? I believe it is going to be very selective going forward whenever we get back to the normalcy as well. I also believe that the organization is started redefining the workplace, right? It would be very hard to say that we would be back to the normal from the workplace standpoint, even in future as well, right? From the IT or digital, function standpoint, most of the work luckily can be done remotely. So we don't have it in our industry. We don't have a concern or the challenge to get back the employee to the organization. And we have been hearing that in the media or the newspaper or our colleagues that a lot of organizations has already started extending their work from home duration in 2021 as well. and I believe this will continue at least a couple of quarters in the 2021. And whoever need to be in the office, they have to strictly follow the SOP, keeping the safety of the employee in mind. So safety is the primary focus is going to be for the employer in 2021 as we get back to the normal.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Khare, I mean, a very different industry, right? The BFSI space has its own very specific challenges, right? I mean, security, the fact that the products are often complex that needs to be sort of explained to people. So from a customer standpoint, from an internal employee standpoint, what have been your key priorities as you sort of are looking to get back to as close to normal as possible?
So, thank you, Mr. Rudra, first, and to the other dignitaries, both Mr. Purkayastha and Mr. Purvar. It's a very interesting question, and when we merged in our, personalized home cabins, sitting there with our executive teams of what we actually want to do, we said that it is not workplace, it is a business place. How can we create a business place where business happens, right? Because the first and foremost responsibility was this should not hit business, or it should hit in the minimum possible way. And to do that, the first priority was how can we seamlessly deliver our business by even staying, away, right? So number one thing that we asked is what can we do to be productive to whatever level we can, right? And I am saying we are seeing pre-COVID normalcy. We believe that this is the normalcy. Normalcy is now. This is normal. It may change something else, but normal is going to be this. So you can plan only for this because you really don't know, if the second wave comes in, there is so much news, there is so much information, there is no wisdom out there. The wisdom is there only in the now, right? And so we've got back to our fundamentals where we want to care for our employees. We want to care for the service we provide to our customers. Right. And for that, so can we do productivity as number one? Second was, can we provide balance? Because that started hitting. So we divided, if you see, when I look back, very easy to look back and see alignment. We divided into 3 quarters, not just 1 quarter, because we are almost now going to reach the final quarter, right? March 21st is somewhere where we did lockdown. And so we have good enough 9 months gone. So first was about this will go away, not accepting it. Second was about, it seems like it is going to stay. And third is about realization that even if it stays, I need to make things work. People are going to look for growth, right? So the 3 things that we focused was productivity. Second was balance. Can we provide balance? Because we are getting people to work for 12, 14 hours. My employees and customer also expect that because they were sitting idle. They said, let us look at these BFSI things. People, we at BFSI has been very fortunate at times. People have not seen, right? Figures like nobody wants to see their account balance. ATM changing that, do not show. If you want to see the account balance, you have to actually click and show my balance because people feel bad. And third was security. Doing this securely because our category is about money. I would not want Mr. Purkayastha to know what balance I have, right? Or what policy I am buying. So can I do it securely? Can I keep the balance intact? And can I be productive in keeping this? So these were the 3 top priorities we actually worked religiously on.
Thanks, Mr. Khare. I think security is definitely pretty much up there. What we understand is the amount of cyber attacks in the past few months have sharply risen up. And this is for across all organizations. So I will ask you a specific question on security later. But first, coming to another point that you mentioned, right? Productivity. Even though and this is from Mr. Purvar, right? Even though the focus for organizations lies on productivity, of course, the balance between productivity and a great place to work, right, is also important. And that is a harder balance that many companies are striving to find over the last few months. It's harder to work from home. Employees are facing a burnout, etc. How can technology make an impact here? I mean, have you looked at technology to sort of help you achieve that balance, to sort of make your life easier and thereby getting better productivity as well at the same time?
Sure. Thanks, Putra. So if you look at, right, as Mr. Khare was telling, right, the balance, right? What do you see in the pockets of the industry and function? You see the productivity has gone up, and that's because the employees are working from home or remotely. They're saving a lot of time on travel, uh, which making them flexible so that they can work on or the focus on the work which matters to them, right? So a lot of this thing. I spoke to many people in my friends, colleagues in different industries, and most of them said that they are putting a lot of time, work time into the work, right? And the productivity has also gone up. But where they are struggling, the social ecosystem. The employees normally love, all of us, right? Normally love to interact with the physically with the colleagues, right? Having some tea break TikTok or the coffee, the water cooler TikTok, which is missing. And I hope we will get back to that normalcy by some means, right? Either be it in the office or some other means, right? Uh, what we saw is that initially, right, most of the organization, when we were moving from physical office work to the virtual office work in the during the peak of the pandemic, right, I believe there was a productivity glitch, but you know with the digital in the front and center, most of the company has overcome and they were able to get back to the demand of remote connectivity, right? Now most of the organization is now settled, right? They are able to cope up with the demand of the remote connectivity, and digital has been front and center of that. Few of the key examples, I'll just take it, and which we just saw it in the presentation as well. One is employee productivity, the lot of virtual collaborative tools, right? Look at how they were there in the since some time, but the way innovative things are keep adding into that is humongous, right? Take the example of Zoom, Teams or Google Meets, all of that, right? They are continue to add more and more innovative solution, and which are very very small but very very productive. Take an example of virtual background. Take an example of reaction, showing the reaction of the. These are very very small but very very creative way of engaging the virtually participants, right? I have seen people in meeting after meeting, they keep changing their background, virtual background. Somewhere they would like to show the cool face of it, sometime more formal, sometime they are putting their branding, which they are talking, and these are all adding up, right? I would say that these are very very great innovative thing from the customer standpoint, right? If you look at a lot of virtual events are being conducted. This is another virtual event, right? Which we have not seen in past so much, right? In 9 months, this has gone, I would say multifold, right? And if I look at earlier, the sales guys, right, used to travel to the customer, their client location, spending time on the road, spending time on baiting the customer site or customer location to interact with the customer. But now most of it is all digital. They're saving time on travel time, the customer bait time, and all of it, right? That adds up to the productivity. Now they can interact with more customers going forward. So I would say that the digital is definitely helping in this era, right? Probably this pandemic has making us to think differently and make it more digital.
Yeah. A very nice point. I think one of the things that you said at the start was that initially there was a slump in productivity, but as people figured out how to make the most of the tools they have, and the tools sort of adapted as well, productivity has kicked back in. Bringing in Mr. Purkayastha here, you've been working with several companies. What is your sort of view on this? What have you seen over the transition of the last 9 months? How have companies leveraged the tools on offer and been able to sort of get back on track?
Thanks, Udhu. Very good question. And I must say, very interesting points from both Mr. Khare and Mr. Purwar. Specifically, I'd say that there has been a range of things which has been done by companies. And If you look at the IT savvy companies, specifically in the BFSI sector or in the ITS sector, they have approached it a bit differently because for them the population would be a very minimal population which they have to cater to. But if you think about an FMCG company, they have to also think about a mom and pop shop in a tier 4 city, for example. And for them, digital inclusion can't happen through an app because that mom and pop shop doesn't have a smartphone, right? As I was saying. And that's where there has been, starting from a sci-fi kind of a thing to, very simple, voice to text through robotics, which also we have seen. So sci-fi things like, what Mr. Khare was talking about, specifically from security perspective in financial sector. One of the big challenges that a few customers came along with was, how do I know that the employee that I hired is sitting in front of the laptop, right? How do I know that the employee is not clicking pictures of what they see on the screen? Can I do something about that? We have solutions. We have done a solution for that, wherein using the webcam of the laptop, you can actually track the eyeballs and can tell what is the employee doing, if the employee is looking at the laptop or somewhere else, if the employee is the same or not, mapping with the picture in the HR database. And to the other extreme where you can actually use your voice in different languages, because India doesn't mean English and Hindi, because a lot of people if you think about apps, it's 2 or 3 languages. India has multitude of languages, right? So if you think about 26, 27 languages, that will not cover entire India. So is there a method where people can record things in their own mother tongue and that can be then converted into a work stream which can be then addressed? Other various things that we have seen, and believe me, this is actually, as Mr. Purva said, this has increased not only the productivity but also the revenue streams of our customers. So earlier nobody thought about selling a car online. Today cars are selling online. Yesterday only you could think about buying a TV from a e-commerce site. Today you can buy a TV from the same old white goods showroom, who are now engaging with you on a digital channel and giving you a personalized sales experience, right? There's a huge difference. And that has been taken up by enterprises also. We are seeing a whole lot of digital ways of even doing factory handover. Like, I know of a few things that GE has done outside of India, where they're handing over factories, digitally to their customers, which could not be thought about, before Feb of this year, right? So there has been a sea change in the way things happen. I believe that some things are here to stay, some things will fade away. But at the end of the day, this will all increase the productivity and also employee experience, and most importantly, the customer experience.
Interesting. So a lot of things where you need a personal touch, I'm sure some of that will have to come back. I mean, but previously for a sales sort of conversation, if you have to do 5 personal meetings, now you can probably do 1 in-person meeting, and the rest 4 can be virtual, right? Because you've had that, you've broken the ice, you've achieved the comfort, and then you can do it. Very interesting. One question maybe for all our speakers, and I'll start with Mr. Khare. A few digital initiatives that you've taken in the last few months that have revolutionized your business. If you could mention 1 or 2 that have really sort of changed the way things are done at Bajaj Capital.
See, one is a very traditional video conferencing and getting to customers, which is by default Zoom, which has helped, right? Getting people to just create their IDs and just log in and talk to customers. In fact, customers have become very comfortable coming online, right? You are catching up with the customer. Digital is a game where you are catching up with the customer. Your customer is doing extremely new behavior. You have to see, when a teenager is trying to do something, they always send voice messages on WhatsApp. They don't write. You will be surprised that a 22, 23-year-old, even beyond teenager, do not want to type. In fact, you will be amazed to know that a 16 or 18-year-old female in a tier 2 market, right, which we all look for, the 200 million, which Mr. Purokastas showed, right, the not so literate digital guys who are learning the digital aspects, they are using WhatsApp as message, voice message, because their mother reads that message.
Right.
He checks on the WhatsApp. So voice, she thinks this is some song which is going.
Right.
Now, if you can track that, right? So one technology which helped is we implemented robocalling to do calls to our customer. Very nice, implemented whose renewal were due, and we can get great response because we now knew how we can only reach out to the relevant customer. Otherwise, what we used to do, as much lead comes, just get on a call with a human person. Now we said no, we can actually improve on the robocall. So that's one. Second thing that has really worked is implementing Dextime, right? The remote monitoring tool.
Right.
It did create a lot of challenge to employees because it felt like you are being monitored, right? In that monitoring was happening, at office also the monitoring was happening. You were having a biometric to enter, you have to enter by 9:30, but that was so used to that people never thought that that's a monitoring. It's something like when the internet goes away, we think about it. When the light goes away, we think about it. But when it is there, we don't think about it, right? Similarly, people were very fine that they will come by 9:30. If they get late, boss will ask them why you are late, right? But when we implemented that on a Dextime, right, there are a lot of uproar within organization that digital team ka track karna to samajh aata hai, but why do it for all? It's in a very simple context that I will contextualize for some people not from probably a Hindi domain. They say that these people were coming and telling to us, boss, you don't trust us. Do it for a developer, do it for a coder. But why are you doing for a sales guy? Or why are you doing
because everybody is a digital team today, right?
Yes.
Everybody is digital.
Yes. So one very critical thing that I would like to mention here on record, any digital technology, we are digital first guys. We love, that new like button, that new background. We have to now empathize with the user, both customer as much as my business guys. We are not empathizing. We are bringing technology where intent have to be very clearly articulated and discussed before implementing a technology. So that's one learning. The tools are fantastic, right? But so same thing if I tell them that, if I help you put Dextime, you can actually see how much time your productive time is going on useful website. You can yourself see it. When we did that in our company, actually the acceptance became extremely well. We said we will incentivize, we will give you extra rewards for not going multiple time on social and being focused on your work. Someone who was more focused got this. And there were always players, which will always remain. Right? That's the beauty of technology, which Mr. Purokasta is laughing because he will smile because he knows there are players in the category, right, in every place. So these 2-3 things I think are the very critical, Rod.
Yeah. By players, you mean people who know how to hack the system.
Yeah, so you have very simple scripts on Chrome and you can just say that keep moving my cursor and my cursor will keep moving. So you will always online.
Okay. We are live on Mint Facebook and YouTube page, by the way. So
that's brilliant. So people can actually understand. YouTube is filled with content on how to hack your systems, on how to fool the software. So when you start doing eye tracking kind of thing that Mr. Purokasta mentioned, right, where the eye tracking thing,
right,
we need to know when we will get into their personal zone. And when we will be out. So that's where, I think we need to know where the technology need to say, right now for this civilization, it's enough.
Yeah. And very interesting points. I think Mr. Purokasta only mentioned about the new data security bill and
Yes.
Data Protection Act. And
Yes.
what changes that will bring, because we will have a very clear definition of what is personal data, what is non-personal data, etc.
Yes.
And aggregate data. I mean, there's a battle being fought between Facebook and Apple right now over advertising.
Yes.
Very
Right.
visible battle. They've made it sure, right? So interesting times, of course. Mr. Purva, coming to you, a few digital initiatives that have revolutionized your business over the last few months. I think some very interesting points raised by Mr. Khare.
No, great points raised by Mr. Khare. Thanks, Rudra. And I think, just to add one point on Mr. Khare's point is that empathy, right? When we start tracking our employees, I think we need to be a little bit empathic as well there, as we are empathic to our customers. Right? So, just to add, right? I think, as I said earlier, the digital transformation and technology strategies has been the front and center of all this thing which is happening these days. Because everything is virtual, be it working from home, the network, to getting our groceries, to name it, right? Everything is digital. The pandemic has just accelerated this, right? And the innovation has fueled up. Right? A couple of examples which I would like to give it, from the industry is that in last couple of years, right, in B2B industries or B2C industries, you would have heard it a lot that omni-channel, right? The focus is just accelerated now, because of all this pandemic. All of us as a customer, we would like to interact with the companies digitally, right? As Mr. Purkashta was telling that, the customer wants to interact it, the digitally, right? So all of us are also looking at how we can interact, digitally. And our organization is also looking at interacting with digitally, because we want a very less and less physical interaction, right? So the omni-channel, I believe, is going to be the front and center for next couple of years, and so that the organization and the customers can interact each other in multiple ways and seamlessly, so that you're interacting with one channel doesn't mean that, hey, you have to restart from the another channel, but you are contextualizing and making sure that you are able to start from where you left it in one channel. That's one. The second thing comes into my mind is minimizing the physical interaction or physical touch point. Mr. Purkashta talked about the online sale of the car, right? I'll just further extend it. I was reading one article just a few days back, right? During the car sales cycle, there are around 26 customer touch point, right? And out of the 26, 24 has been made it digitally touched, right? You don't need physical interaction. The two left one are the test drive and the physical delivery of the car, right? Which cannot be, right? So look at that, how we are, moving. And this is all because our customer is started accepting those digitally, right? Earlier, this was not the case, but the pandemic has started, pushing the customers, started accepting these innovation. Hence, our organization also started investing on the innovation or the technology and becoming more and more bullish, right? We have been talking about, we are living in the digital era, industry 4.0 and all those things. But this is just pandemic has started making acceleration on these, right? I do believe that, some point in time in future, we'll get back to the normalcy where the COVID will go away, by either through, vaccine or some other mean. But our workplace, to a point, right, will not be the same what we used to have it, right? Gartner predicts that, right, the 39 to 40% of our global workforce will be, working remotely or will be able to work remotely, right? That which used to be around 20% pre-pandemic. This much of shift requires a lot of digitization, a lot of collaboration, a lot of empathy, how you engage with the customer, how you engage with your employees, how you engage with your stakeholders, with digitally, empathically, and so on and so forth. That would I put it.
No, all good points. I think empathy is something very significant. This is something that Mr. Khare also touched upon. I mean, making individuals and or employees or partners who are not as digitally savvy? How do you sort of work with them to sort of upskill? And there's always this fear, right? Coming to Mr. Burke, yes, and also sort of touch upon this point that many companies were sorry. Many companies were sort of primed to entering into this pandemic sort of situation. They were already preparing with a lot of technologies. Even from a Tata communication point of view, I would believe that many things were already sort of in motion that sort of helped you be able to serve your customers very effectively at time when this hit, right? So Tata Comms is known for curating enterprise digital infrastructure. I mean that is a game changer globally. You're one of the leaders there. So, what are the key considerations that have gone into this, into the creation of these products, and especially in this time? How do you feel you were well ready with some of these products at the time it hit? How did that start?
Great question, Rudra. The brilliant point is that we have customers who are very close to us, right? So, for example, we've been working with Bajaj for close to 2 decades now. We've been working with G for close to 2 decades now. So we have customers who have been with us for a very long time. And with those relationships, we not only know what's happening in the ecosystem, but we can also get a sneak peek in the future. And from that perspective, we have had the honor of getting some feelers from our customers in terms of what are they expecting in the future. So, for example, if you're an ITES company, then how do you think your business is going to change going forward? Specifically because your billing resources are going to work from home. So, what does it mean for a financial institution who are working from home? They have to actually then meet RBI guidelines, right? So, what does the audit trail mean for them? It's just not simple in terms of taking a tool and deploying it. In most of the large enterprises, there will be nuances either from an end customer perspective or from a regulation and law perspective, right? So what we did is that starting February, we started having discussion with key customers. And with the knowledge that we gathered, we actually developed a set of solutions and productized and launched it end of March. Actually, 26th of March, 21st of March, as Mr. Khare was saying, lockdown started, and 26th of March is when we launched a set of products. And starting April, we had customers on production, including one car company who is selling their cars on the platform that we have given. And touchwood, it is selling well. Customers are happy. The car company is also ecstatic because you know that Tesla has been doing this for some time now, but most of the other car OEMs has not really gone into this model. This actually changes the game for them in not only the digital manner, but in in a very different manner, right?
And the model changes completely for the
and the implication is much larger, right? They can now reach out to a lot of other people. I was speaking to a real estate person, very close friend of mine. He said that we used to sell within Bangalore. When we launch something. Today, we are selling to people in US and in Dubai and not even thinking about it, because now we can reach out to those customers because we can do that at this point of time. Everything is digital for them, right? So digitally, they're selling their real estate, and actually they're selling it better. There has been one project which got sold off all 300 units in something like 45 days. It was a record for them. So, digital from that perspective, what we heard from our customers, incorporated those things, understood the end customer requirements, the nuances of the laws, the regulations, and then could come in. Of course, we had to work with the customers because these are all new things. As Mr. Purwar was saying, when you think about a car sales is not easy. You need to also understand that car sales is a family affair. You'd like to buy a car with friends and families, and you need to kind of bring in a lot of people together. It won't be a one-to-one sale. So if you like the car, you suddenly say that, hey, can I bring my wife? Can I bring my kids? They want to see the car, and it needs to be a very simple process, right? So how can you do that, seamlessly, where the customer and the salesperson who is doing that is not overwhelmed, right? They don't have to press 20 buttons and tell that, now you'll get a link, you have to type in 50 things. It should be simple, click of a button and everything works.
Open in your browser rather than downloading something.
Correct. So those things really helped us, and we kind of took things forward from there. So I'd say customer feedback was the primary thing, and also the way our customers worked with us to bring in new solutions to the market, because all of these things which Mr. Khare and Ms. Purwar are saying, they are new things, right? And it needed some kind of a trial and error. But the best thing is that both the end customers and the employees had the adoption, in this period. Earlier, the biggest challenge ever with both Mr. Khare and Purwar would be, I'm launching new things, nobody's adopting that. In this new, era of things, people are adopting things left, right, and center. That's the brilliant thing about digital at this point of time.
I know. I mean, that's actually a very good point. I mean, the fact that customers are willing to accept a completely digital transaction, especially in very high involvement, high touch goods, like cars. I mean, we love to see touch our cars, go to 5 showrooms, and then finally decide depending on a budget, right? But customers are willing to do that completely digitally. Homes, extremely rare. I can't imagine somebody, maybe NRIs who are purely investors. But if you're really looking at an asset, it's very hard. But this has changed all of that, right? I mean, customers figured out that it can be done digitally, and I'm comfortable doing it. I think very interesting. We'll go. We'll have a second poll, second and the last poll for today right now, and also a quick reminder to our attendees. Please do share your questions using the Q&A button at the bottom. I'll flag some of these to our panelists at the end. Sharing the second poll now, about 40 seconds again. Yeah. And our panelists can also vote, please. Can you also see the results live, or is it only, I think, viewable to me? So when I share it, I think it is visible to everybody.
Yeah, I can't see it, so it's you are the only one who can see it.
I can see it going live, so okay. I'll just share it. I think we are at 44 seconds. Waiting for a few last moment people. The questions are a little long, so it takes a little time to read, I think. Still getting in entries. Okay. Ending the poll and sharing the results. So the first question was, how will the pandemic change your organization's IT strategy? I mean, cloud adoption will increase. Managed security paradigm will have to evolve. Networks will have to be more flexible and robust. New collaboration solutions will be needed. 74% said all of the above. And true, right? It can't be just one thing. It has to be a mixed bag. And the second question, which of the following IT projects will be a priority for you in the next 6 months? Transforming the network of the organization, driving cloud adoption and connectivity to major cloud providers, plugging all the security loopholes in the organization's network, IT innovations for managing changes, and setting up robust and high performance infrastructure for flexible workforce. I think 48%, the last two are a tie. Setting up robust and high performance infrastructure for a flexible workforce, clearly, like our panelists have mentioned, it's going to be a mix going ahead. Great, just taking it off the screen. Yeah. Um, my next question is for Mr. Khare, and this is really my last one or two questions. So, Mr. Khare, you spoke about security, right? And this is something that I want to touch upon now. Remote work is definitely a ground reality, and I'm sure it's going to remain pretty much this way, or a hybrid model going ahead, right? So, security in this scenario is right on top. So, what are the three top challenges you faced while ensuring a secure customer experience, and how have you solved for these?
So, we live in a world which is digital, as we see. And what happens is because when you live in this kind of place, everybody is equal. You know, me trying to reach the top person in the company would have taken me, at least three skips to reach. But the junior most uh, person or the customer who is just buying a, 1 rupee SIM, right? Request to want to tweet to Mr. Tata and asking that why my SIM is not working. So what happens is, now why I'm saying this comes into the security is because in a world where we are comparing ourselves to startups, right? And looking at how they build and release new things, right? First and foremost, what we as company have to realize, and I see that is we are not competing in that arena. Understand that, because probably the new startups are hunting for customers while we are farming our customers. So we very clearly have to understand that we already have customers and it's our responsibility to serve them, and we serve them well, right? That is the first area, and that's why associating with right set of partners for security becomes very, very critical. Now, here is the catch. The number one thing is the same thing which probably Purakastaji will offer to me, right? A new startup would offer at 50% price, right? Or a newbie can do that. Or which a new company which is not a startup, but a businessman can offer me at a discount rate like anything because it's a price war. But what happens to my data in that scenario is the first question we ask, because when we got, because we have to accelerate, we were offline first companies, right? Building on the digital, the world is, there is 1.3 billion people looking for insurance when COVID hit. Everyone wanted insurance. So now security, what happens is, am I going to go with a platform or a partner which offers you high grade security and a cost associated with it? Or I am fine with a little chances, but do it more, faster. So it's always a question of managing three things. Number one is time to market, because that's very critical. Second is, am I able to protect what is mine? Because a lot of companies, which Mr. Purkasta mentioned and even Mr. Purvar mentioned, that cyber attacks on database, right, is so rampant, right, from the biggies to the small ones, right? So that, and the third most critical point that we see in the security is security at the cost of business, because you eventually have to make it profitable. Understand that we are doing business. So I may get the best grade security, but the P&L will never catch up. Trust me, it will never catch up. You want to take a cloud solution. You go to the top three guys. I'm not naming the three, everyone knows it. Everyone will give you a 70% discount to shuffle from one to another. Right? Because the cost, and when a new person joins in, the first thing is let's shuffle everything. Because that shows that the old thing was not working right. I will give a new solution and we start. And it's a classic game in all corporate, right? I come back as a new guy. The beauty is realizing for the top management is, can we build on top of it? Can we improve from here without hampering the current systems? So that is the number one thing. You have to first secure your strategy and then come to doing the security for your data, then to secure your interest, business interest. So when we look at a lot of companies, right from getting a better platform for an HR service, or you look for a service for the customer, trying to integrate with our systems, what is happening to customer data? Where is it going? It should also not come at the cost of business. So you want to be cutting edge, but it end up being a bleeding edge of technology, right? Most of the time, the challenge is the cutting edge of the technologies are also at the bleeding edge of the technology, and they bleed companies. And companies don't realize, because these answers don't come out in a quarter. Me taking a cloud solution, an example, will be seen after 3 years, right? And you never get there. So my we when we try to do it, and my suggestion is, to what I have seen within the industry, and obviously Mr. Purval will have a better view of this from his vast experience, is first understand when is the PNL going to make it profitable. Discuss with the business guy. I keep saying one of the most important thing is discuss with the business person, when does the output start coming. At least have a fair bit idea. I know it's so many changes, right, that you just can't believe, and know what are the potential pitfalls. Yeah.
Got it. So essentially, understand your risk appetite as a company. How much you need to risk, and what is your balance sheet allow you to do, and accordingly invest in the right technology. Of course, playing with the newest technology has its certain costs, but you really need it.
Yeah.
That is the point. Mr. Purwal, anything to add to that from a security standpoint? What kind of challenges would you have faced, and how high is security for a company such as yours? In needed. I understand from BFSI it's very high, but
I think security is the highest in all industries, right? Be it in the healthcare or be it BFSI, because healthcare industry is also we play with the hospitals, or we work with the hospitals. Their data is very secure, needed to be very secure. We keep getting the scan data from the big machines, right? That has to be very secure. So security is the key element. I would agree to the Mr. Khare's point, right? A lot of time we run behind the shiny toy, right? We start making the think, oh, this is in the high demands. Let's move all the things from X cloud to the Y cloud, or get into the X technology versus the Y technology, because that's all in demand, and that's what we want to show it in the leadership, right? But what is the real value you are creating to the business, to the customers, or to your organization? That's a key, right? What is the value? What is the ROI if for this investment, right? What is the payback period you are looking at for this investment? That's a key on making any I would say investment decision on the technology. That is the key.
Mr. Prakash, coming to you, I mean, I think a little leader from this, and your thoughts as well. So the right product for the right company, and you have 20 years of relationships, right? So you've clearly been doing this for a while with both these companies, is what you mentioned. So how do you sort of figure this out, right? For an organization to be truly digital first, what are the three most important milestones they need to consider, and thereby invest in that right technology, which is fit for them, not necessarily the newest on the table?
Correct. So absolutely agreed. Doing a bird mentality is something that is not the right thing. And both Bajaj and GE have been lighthouse for companies, and have been the ones who are being followed, right? So if GE is doing something, or Bajaj is doing something, others follow, right? But then security is an ever-changing goalpost, if I may call that. And security is also at times kind of compared to insurance, right? You don't know when you need that. There won't be a ransomware attack every day at your office, and God forbid if it happens, then what? Have you been protected? Is there a DOS attack that is happening at your end? That's from a holistic perspective. But let me tell you, a few very interesting things. Today, phishing attacks have gone up by 3,000%. And what has happened is it's not anything else. But what would happen is that, for example, in Bajaj, or even in your case, somebody in HT, you may have a very senior person whose entire profile will be copied, and you'll get mails from them, right? How do you know? Your customers and maybe internal employees will get mails from them. How do you know that in the dark web, your entire username password is not leaked, or your profiles are not being copied, specifically the leadership profiles, right? So specifically for the brands, I'd say things like brand monitoring, dark web monitoring, these have become like table stakes, right? Because you do not want your brand to be tarnished, because at the end of the day, the brand has much bigger value than a simple network going down. The network going down may cost you in maybe in 10 lakhs or something, but then if the brand goes down, the cost will be in crores, right? So the point that Mr. Khare said, and also Mr. Purva said, totally agreed. The business impact of that is something that needs to be looked at. So brand, the business impact is much higher. Whereas the newest and the greatest thing which is there, do I need to leave that, or can I push that for the future? Which insurance should I buy? I will not buy all the insurance in the world, right? I'll buy the ones that are most important for me, and that's how companies are looking at security also. But here, one thing which also comes into play is what is regulated, right? So if there is a regulation which is forcing or mandating a few things. So for example, if you're in the banking industry, then RBI says that you have to do a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So you need to follow that. Whereas on the other hand, if you're an unregulated industry, then you'd follow a set of guidelines which would ensure that people are not just going everywhere, because most of the security incidents happen because of the internal employees. So there is a varied amount of things which is done. Depends on which industry you are, what kind of data set you're handling, what kind of customers you're handling. And depending on that, we kind of deploy things from very, very exciting things like XDR to brand monitoring, to simple things like DDoS also, right? So that's where we are at this point of time.
And I know, I mean, for a fact that we've had these attacks recently at HT, so I'm aware of some of these. In fact, there was a phishing attack, and we got a phishing training on all of that as well after that. Yeah, but also to just add to what I think Mr. Khare said is that we have to understand and something that you mentioned. What is the potential impact on a brand if something sort of goes down? And for a startup, maybe the impact may not be as high because it's a brand is only probably 6 months or a year old. But for a company as old as this, getting back on track if your brand takes a hit, the potential damage is a lot more. So, and thereby that sort of gives you a math to work with. How much should I invest behind this? Great. Thanks a lot. I mean, there's one question I think I will take from our audience before closing our discussion today. Tushar Sood has asked, what are the innovations we visualize in terms of new technology? I see a focus only on improvement of existing technology instead of bringing new ones. So what are the new technology innovations that we are essentially looking at here, Mr. Purkes? I think you are best placed to tackle that.
Okay, so there are multiple areas which are there, right? If I just touch upon network, for example, a simple network is going to be transformed with 5G coming in, which everybody knows, where you'd see much higher speeds on the last mile. There is a Leo constellation which is also coming in the satellite constellation, where you have SpaceX, you have OneWeb, you have Telesat, who are going to change the way VSAT works. You'll have fiber in the air coming in. You'll have quantum. There's a lot of research done on quantum communications. So that's on the telecom space. When you look at the compute space, edge is going to be one of the big things which will impact things. So, for example, one of the car manufacturers in their high-end cars have started putting edge. and in the car itself. And as you go into autonomous vehicles, you'll need edge everywhere, right? Because you need split-second decisions by the car. You can't wait for the car to communicate with somebody else and then take a decision of steering left or steering right by the time an accident can happen. So how do you do those kind of things? So edge will be something that will be good to look at. IoT, and M2M is something which will have whole lot of new things which we'll see happening in this space. So the entire space is extremely exciting, and there are a whole lot of things which is happening there, which are if you look at just Gartner's hype cycle, there'll be a few very interesting things which you'd see, starting from robotics to drones to edge, etc., which are there. By the way, I have a few patents also which I've filed for that. So exciting time, and I'd say that tech is there are a lot of things which is happening in tech, and I'm sure Tushar can we can have a day-long discussion on this if you want, Tushar.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, and edge is something that was sort of always the mystery to me. I mean, it's really the reverse of what we thought cloud computing was supposed to do, right? Centralize at one place rather than going the reverse, decentralizing. But I guess the logic here is that you need a lot of more computing power in order to process that much data.
So think about this, that when you have a warehouse, right? A large e-com company has a huge warehouse which where your supply chain works in a very different manner. Otherwise you can't get your goods in one day. If you order, you can't get your goods in one day. The way they do it is by doing autonomous sorting. When you're doing autonomous sorting, the warehouse is not small, right? It's a huge warehouse. So how do you get things from one place to other? They're using a whole lot of things. Now, as you start using things like drone, you need to tell the drone where to go, what to do. And it needs to be, very, very instantaneous. It cannot be, the drone can't wait for 2 seconds to get the new, stream of messages.
Yeah. No. Got it. Really, really clear. Especially for autonomous cars, cars talking to each other is going to be very, very key. I mean, you can't wait for the car to sort of communicate with the server up there. You'll crash by then. Very, very interesting. A lot of good conversation. I think Tushar, Mr. Purkes has already offered a longer chat outside of this webinar. Thank you for joining us. This brings us to the end of our discussion. A big thanks to all our panelists and the audience for joining us today, for taking the time out on today, on a Wednesday evening. I request you to fill a short survey as you exit the show. It will pop up on the screen, and this is largely for our audience. A big shout out to Tata Communications for partnering with us for this series. We will see you again in the new year as in this series, and this is us signing off. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you, Rudra. Thank you, Mr. Khare and Mr. Purwal. Have a great new year, and looking forward to chatting with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Likewise.